Alrighty, so I am sitting here with Shamubeel Eaqub. He's an economist, and the purpose of this presentation is to talk to small business owners about, Shamubeel's expertise and views on what's going on at the moment. So Shamubeel, the first question I have for you is it started off with the virus, and then it went to the self-isolation, and then the relief package, and last night the borders being closed. There's lots of headlines, there's lots of emotion, it's happening so fast. What do business owners need to be focusing on at this time?
Well, the first thing is not panic, because we just don't have a good understanding of what's going to happen next. What we can see is what's happening in our own businesses, with our own suppliers, with our own customers, and our cash position. The biggest challenge for most businesses will be how much cash do you have to go through this period of disruption right now.
Absolutely. And what impact do you think that the border closures will have on our economy?
Well, we're choosing between two evils. Do we let thousands of people die, or do we stop it and take the economic and other disruption hit now? So either way, we're choosing between two terrible consequences, one of human lives and another that comes with, I guess, very immediate economic shocks. So the border closures that we're seeing for New Zealand are similar to what we're seeing in terms of essentially things just shutting down around the world. Across places like Europe, America, we're seeing the same kinds of things. So around the world, we're going to be dealing with something we have never dealt with before. We're essentially on wartime footing, where people stop doing things. And a little bit of context is, about 70% of our economy is services. Services is people like you and me talking to each other, dealing with each other, cafes, financial services, all those things that we do. But if we're apart from each other, it's very hard to do those things. So the entire basis of our economy is going to be disrupted over coming months. And, until we find a vaccine, this might go on for a while. The cost of not doing something is also very big. So say if the infection rate goes up to, say, 50 or 60% like the flu, and the mortality rate is 1% as they think it is, the cost in terms of human lives is about half of our economy. So, these are impossible choices.
Yeah, and like you say, something we just, in our lifetime, we haven't had to face and haven't had to recover from and navigate. So it's a lot of uncertainty.
It is, but there will also be lots of industries that will be really needed and that will need to do things differently, that will be in demand. So we know that people will still want to eat, people will still want to, but they will want to do it online, on delivery or takeaways. People will still need food, so the groceries will be doing well, and there will be short-staffed in terms of logistics and drivers and shelvers. Our health system is going to have to scale up massively. There will be lots of parts of the economy that will have to shift and pivot away from what we do now, at least temporarily. But there is still demand. We still have to live. We still have to keep doing things. So it's not going to be going to zero, but boy, it's going to be so disruptive.
Yeah. And what steps will we need to take to recover?
Well, the first priority is very much around the public health, of course, to make sure that enough of us survive. We don't create that massive death toll getting into the vaccine period. But once we get there, the recovery is going to require huge amounts of stimulus and a lot of us working together. So collectivism is going to be the big thing. And I know people don't want to hear that. We've been through essentially the 4 decades of privatization and small government. And yet we're now sitting at a point where big government is our best solution. We need government to step in terms of providing both the support now so we can all pay our bills, live, and all that kind of stuff. Businesses survive, jobs are not lost. But when the recovery comes, central banks can't really help because they're out of firepower. Interest rates are practically zero. Banks are going to be weak. So what we'll need is government to spend billions and billions of dollars. New Zealand is very well placed because we've got very little debt relative to other places. And we know that given the scale of the crisis, we will be entering into quantitative easing, which means the central bank will be keeping interest rates very low for a very long time. We're in uncharted waters here, but the recovery is going to depend very much on how constructive we are with the way that we spend the government money.
Mm. Mm. I canvassed some business groups actually in preparation for this, and a common question that came up for you is, are there any learnings from past recessions and crises that we can take and apply to this situation?
There are always good lessons, but keep in mind that history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. So there are rhythms that we should look to. So we know that in the period of a crisis, the big lesson is all about liquidity and cash. Just make sure you understand what's going on. The uncertainty this time around is it's likely to be longer than what we've seen before, because we're trying to do this public health approach, which is going to require us to be very careful for quite a long period of time. So sustaining that long period of essentially reduced economic and human contact is going to take a toll. So that is unprecedented. Last time we saw that was the wartime, but during the war, there was all the war activity that was creating jobs and those kinds of things. So essentially, we're going to have to find some way of thinking about how can we look after the population inside New Zealand and the kinds of things the world outside will still need in this period of lockdown. And New Zealand is very well placed to do this, right? New Zealand is actually a very successful country when it comes to both looking after its own population and our export markets. So our food is going to be in high demand. We know that our trade channels are still open. It's disrupted, but ships are still going. We know the cargo planes will still go. So we are going to have some connectivity still. But for a manufacturing sector, very specialized. So for them, they're going to face a big shock. But eventually things will start to get back to normal. They will have to think about the kinds of demand we're going to see in the next year might be very different from what they have seen in the last several decades. And the big lesson for me is really around preparing for the recovery. So when we look back to history, we normally think about this short, sharp shock and we come out of it very quickly. And that's what happened in previous recessions. But it's unlikely we'll come out of this quickly. Even with the best efforts, we will lose many businesses and many jobs. So that infrastructure for recovery is going to be damaged. So it's going to take longer. So plan for a slow recovery. But those who survive will be in an extraordinary position to gain significant amount of market share, and they will be far bigger as a result of it. So I think there are lots of silver linings when the recovery happens for those who can survive. So this is very much about having a strategic plan, a BCP that lets you survive over a long period of time without having to essentially, sort of get rid of your ISP, right? USB.
Okay. It's quite a heavy topic, isn't it? And the last question that I have for you is, what advice do you have for business owners in the immediate time?
So essentially, you need to be very careful about understanding what's your sustainable point. So as long as you know that you can survive at this level, go there now, because this is about survival. So this is essentially going to the mattresses, right? We're talking about this is mafia style. We got to make sure that we understand what is the bare minimum we have to do or the maximum we can do to get through this period. So pull out all the stops. There is no time for caution. Go to your extreme plan right now. And it's all about how can you survive for 12 or 18 months in very difficult conditions. Make sure you understand, yes, I mean, there will be job losses. And that's why we have welfare payments have been lifted. So at least we know the difficult decisions we have to make about laying off people have to be made now. We know that the difficult decisions we have to make in terms of, pivoting our business away from things we used to do before, they have to be done now. So anything that you're not good at, stop doing right now. Anything you don't have to do right now, don't do it anymore. So you've got to be ruthless in terms of cutting costs and scaling your business to this new reality, at least for the next 12 to 18 months.
Okay. That's really fantastic. It's really practical advice, and certainly something that we need to absorb and build a plan around.
Yeah, and I think, it's just the reality of what we're dealing with. This is not about panicking. It's about saying, this is what we have to do. And rather than pretending that it's going to be okay, let's assume that there's a crisis for it, and figure out how we can do better with it. Because if we survive, the recovery is going to be extraordinarily good for business.
Yeah.
The opportunities will still be there. I mean, we will still exist. There will still be 5 million people in 2 years' time.
Yeah. And they'll still have wants and needs and yeah. Okay. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I know that you're likely very busy at this time because you've got some really important knowledge and understanding that you can inform. So I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us and to help us get up to speed with where things are at from your point of view. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.